Good evening and welcome to Inside City Hall for Monday, October 20th, 2025. I'm Bobby Kuza in for Errol Lewis. Later tonight, I will host a debate between the two candidates in a closely watched city council race in southern Brooklyn for the seat currently held by term-limited councilman Justin Brannan. Stick around to watch Democrat Kayla Santosuosso and Republican George Sarantopoulos square off right here on New York One. But first, we begin with the race for mayor. The pressure is mounting for Curtis Sliwa to drop his bid for mayor, but the Republican nominee says he's not going anywhere. Today, one of the city's most influential Republican donors and Sliwa's former employer pleaded for him to end his campaign. That call by John Catsimatidis was echoed by the New York Post editorial board. Our Kelly Mena joins me now with tonight's top story. Good evening, Kelly.
Good evening, Bobby. And Sliwa's candidacy in the race continues to be questioned by those within his own party. There are mounting calls for him to drop his bid with the hopes of being able to consolidate support against a different or rival candidate in the race.
The billionaires will not pick the next mayor. The people will.
Republican nominee Curtis Sliwa is not leaving the race, even as some GOP pressure to drop his bid mounts. Influential donor and billionaire John Catsimatidis called on Sliwa to find the exit door.
We cannot take a chance on Zolman winning.
Sliwa had these comments for his former WABC radio boss.
The billionaires can conspire to pick their candidate. They failed with Cuomo the first time. They ran over to Eric Adams. And now they've run back to Andrew Cuomo. I trust the people. They'll make the decision. I'm not dropping out.
Just hours later, the conservative New York Post editorial board also made the same plea. Some critics feared that Sliwa's continued presence could split the opposition vote between himself and independent candidate Andrew Cuomo, giving Democrat Zohran Mamdani an easy path to victory. But Sliwa is pressing on.
I have support. I have 11 headquarters. I have volunteers everywhere, signs galore. Plus, I have a get out the vote effort, which is what you need to win elections.
My advice to him is continue to make his own case.
Democrat Mamdani agreed with his competitor that the ballot box should make the final ruling. Mamdani on Monday looked to battle something other than his rivals in the race, sidewalk sheds.
Something we should relegate to the past instead of bringing with us into the future. Believe it or not, I am not speaking about Andrew Cuomo. I am talking about the scaffolding that covers thousands of blocks across the city.
On Monday, he presented his four-point plan to achieve clear skies. That includes removing years-old sheds from city property, increasing the inspection time for newer buildings, and improving the design and safety of the sheds. Plenty of officials have tried to tackle the issue with little results. Mayor Eric Adams in April signed a package of legislation aimed at addressing the issue. Mamdani says he would be different.
This is about action. And if you measure the mayor's record in terms of action, you find that he took down fewer than 1% of all scaffolding in New York City.
There's only about 5 days until early voting starts on Saturday, and on Sunday, President Trump again weighed in on this mayor's race, unwilling to endorse anybody right now, even Republican Curtis Sliwa saying that he might not get involved at all, Bobby.
So, Kelly, I think I've heard Curtis Sliwa asked about 100 times if he's getting out of the race. He has always been adamant that he's not getting out. Has that tone changed at all with these latest calls?
I don't think so, and I don't think that it would actually make a difference, because we have to remember Sliwa's name would still be on the ballot even if he were to drop his bid today. Then it would have to turn into some type of educational campaign, you know, about letting voters know that though his name is on the ballot, he's not running. So I think it would just be confusing for voters right now. And I don't know that necessarily there are Republicans that want to jump to Cuomo's camp right now. Sliwa has polled around a strong 15%, and that percent seems very excited about voting for him in this election cycle.
And the Trump quote at the Trump interview where he was asked again about the mayor's race, he did not make any sense, any show of support for Andrew Cuomo, even though in the past he had made it sound like Cuomo was maybe best position to win. Yeah,
that's right. He said, you know, he doesn't want to support a Democrat either when it comes to endorsing. He's obviously the head of his own Republican Party, doesn't look good necessarily to be supporting the rival team. And Trump doesn't necessarily, or Trump is not a very well-liked political figure here in the city. So I don't know that Cuomo would get a boost from his endorsement. And I think actually Cuomo has said that he wouldn't necessarily welcome it. So it's an interesting factor right now. We'll see how it goes. I don't think Curtis Sliwa is going to leave this race anytime soon. I think he's in it till the very end.
All right, Kelly Mena, thank you for that report. And Andrew Cuomo is right now sitting down for a town hall conversation inside a synagogue. This evening will be moderated by the son of Holocaust survivor Elie Wiesel. Political reporter Ayanna Harry is joining us live now from that synagogue on Manhattan's Upper West Side with more on the conversation. Good evening, Ayanna.
Good evening, Bobby. The forum here is just getting underway. The rabbi is delivering opening remarks, and then we're told this will be a 1-hour, wide-ranging conversation with Andrew Cuomo on topics including anti-Semitism, affordability, transportation, and Andrew Cuomo's overall vision as the potential next mayor of New York City. We do know that we are just over 2 weeks away from Election Day, and it has been a very busy day for Andrew Cuomo, the former governor and now independent candidate for mayor. Andrew Cuomo started his day on cable news. He stopped by MSNBC, where he was once again critical of Zohran Mamdani, saying he's only offering slogans and gimmicks instead of real plans for New York City. And Cuomo was also asked to reflect on the Democratic primary back in June and whether or not there was anything he missed ahead of that loss to Zohran Mamdani.
I did not see the energy of the 20 to 30-year-olds. I didn't see I knew the affordability issue. I didn't think they would accept the freeze the rent one slogan as an actual answer. And I didn't see the anti-Israel anger. I didn't see that. I didn't see how that was going to motivate people in a mayor's race. I saw the anti-Israel anger. It was on the street. But you are going to vote for mayor based on your opposition to Israel?
Andrew Cuomo also stopped by Fox News Channel earlier today, and he was asked about President Donald Trump once again weighing in this past weekend on the race for mayor.
Are you going to endorse anybody in New York?
Well,
Cuomo or Sliwa?
yeah, I guess I haven't made a decision, really.
I'm running as an independent, so I wouldn't ask for President Trump's endorsement. I don't want to accept endorsements like that. I think President Trump is analyzing the polls, and he says Cuomo is the only person who has a chance to beat Mamdani.
And finally, Andrew Cuomo was asked earlier today about whether or not he is still seeking Eric Adams' endorsement. And Cuomo said the conversation between him and Eric Adams is still ongoing, Bobby.
So, Ayanna, I mean, Cuomo doesn't do a lot of events where he's sort of mixing it up with voters, taking questions from an audience. But this presumably is sort of a friendly audience, right, at the synagogue, especially considering his views on Israel.
It does seem to be like this will be a friendly audience for him, but, you know, I think people will also be listening very critically and listening closely to what Cuomo has to say.
Ayanna Harry, thank you so much for that report. It is time now for a break. Coming up, more federal workers continue to be furloughed as the government shutdown drags on. We will bring you an update from Washington, D.C. next, and later, two candidates in a closely watched city council race in South Brooklyn will face off in a debate right here on New York One. Stay with us. We are back in a minute.
Every day tells a new story. At Mornings on One, we're dedicated to bringing you the stories that matter most to start your day. With in-depth coverage of the day's developing news.
I'm Pat Kernan. Here are the stories we're following this morning.
And weather updates every 10 minutes.
Some morning sunshine possible, clouds take over.
It's our responsibility to get you the information you need before you head out the door. Mornings on One, weekdays starting at 6 on the Spectrum News app. Free for Spectrum customers.
Spectrum TV, isn't that only live TV?
No, it's only all my favorite streaming apps with live TV.
Okay.
It's only all included at no extra cost, and that's the magic of math. Will this be on the test? Sure, why not?
It's only one simple payment for all our TV. We gotta simplify and win. Winning is equally important.
If not, more so.
Yeah!
Only Spectrum TV, fixed TV. I'm Sandra, this is Jorge, and we were adopted in 2019. I remember when they first came to us, Michael was already a teenager. The whole cliche of they're so lucky to have you guys, and it's the other way around. They have changed our family for the better. They chose to love us. They didn't have to. They chose us. Family.
Learn about adopting a teen from foster care. You can't imagine the reward. Visit adoptuskids.org.
And that's a look at some of what's in the papers this morning. You've done with the sports section.
Today's story is about the latest chapter for a beloved local business.
It's a beautiful day with temperatures in the 60s. But showers are expected in the next hour.
In a city that's always on the go, it's important to stop to hear the stories that connect us.
The news that matters to New Yorkers. That's what brings us together. That's Mornings on One.
Weekdays starting at 6.
Exclusively on Spectrum.
Welcome back to Inside City Hall. The federal shutdown grinds on with no resolution in sight. The latest casualty are the workers who oversee America's nuclear stockpile. Most of them are now being furloughed. Our national political reporter Taylor Popolars joins me now with the latest from Washington. Good evening, Taylor.
Hey there, Bobby. You know, as the shutdown continues to drag on, people might be learning about different federal agencies and departments that they've never heard of before, but that thousands, if not tens of thousands of employees are employed by and their families are impacted by this. And this week, the latest storyline is that America's nuclear arsenal is now being impacted by this shutdown. Monday marked day 20 of the government shutdown, now the third longest in U.S. history. It's now taking an unprecedented toll on America's nuclear weapons program. For the first time, the National Nuclear Security Administration had to furlough roughly 1,400 employees on Monday due to funding lapses. It leaves fewer than 400 federal workers whose job it is to oversee and safeguard the nuclear stockpile.
America is the last great superpower on the planet. But we have to maintain that status. And if we get behind on funding or personnel or any of these projects that we're involved in that are at a level that we can't talk about in here, it's very serious.
House Speaker Mike Johnson expressed concern about it Monday, but he's continuing to keep the House out of session over the shutdown stalemate. Energy Secretary Chris Wright visited a national security site in Nevada on Monday and called it a tough day that's affecting jobs of great gravity.
The last thing we want to do is see that workforce disrupted. People are out of work too long, they go get other jobs. That's a loss to our country, that's a loss to those families.
The top Democrats on the Energy and Water subcommittees in Congress sent the Secretary a letter on Friday expressing concern about layoffs at the Energy Department taking place in connection to the shutdown. These RIFs, or reductions in force, would effectively dismantle the very offices responsible for lowering energy costs for American families and communities, they wrote. Now, if this shutdown bleeds into next week, which looks very likely, there's a separate federal agency that oversees transporting nuclear weapons around the country that will run out of funding. And that's something the Energy Secretary Chris Wright talked today about while he was out in Nevada. So just another example, Bobby, of the many, many different parts of the federal government that are impacted when a shutdown lasts more than just a couple of days.
And Taylor, can I ask you about the status of negotiations to get the government back reopened, or are there just no negotiations to speak of?
Sadly, it's the latter. The top party leaders are barely communicating with each other. It's now been over 1 month since the U.S. House has been in session. Their last votes took place on September 19th, and House Speaker Mike Johnson has insisted because House Republicans passed a short-term funding bill that he's not going to bring the House back into session until the Senate acts on it. The Senate has voted on that same funding bill almost a dozen times, and it has failed because Democrats do not want to give Republicans a win on this. So the Senate is back in session this week. The House is not, but the two sides are not talking, and President Trump honestly hasn't been too involved in this because he's been so focused on the various foreign policy stories and conflicts that he's trying to manage. So it's a bit of a mess.
All right, Taylor Popolars in Washington, D.C., thank you so much. Here in the city, new data shows that more than 150,000 students were homeless during the last school year, with 65,000 of them spending time in city homeless shelters. New York One education reporter Jillian Jorgensen spoke to the mother of one of those children to learn more about what it's like to navigate school while living in the city's shelter system.
Kezzy Thomas knows what life is like for the more than 150,000 children in city schools who were homeless last year. She watched her daughter live through it as they bounced around the shelter system.
My daughter's move every semester, and it's really messing up her, she's finding it hard to build relationships with friends. She's finding it hard to focus. She's falling asleep because she's tired from the commute.
Thomas became homeless after a marketing business she ran began to struggle a few years after the pandemic hit, prompting her first to crash with friends and family and ultimately enter shelter. They were often placed in shelters far from her daughter's school. That led Thomas to change her child's school at least 5 times over the years she was in and out of shelter.
The final shelter that I stayed at before being placed in permanent housing, it was like an hour and 50 minutes almost to get to her school. And that was a disaster.
At first, Thomas had to bring her child to school via public transit with a baby in tow.
I'm doing my best to try to commute, get on the trains this long hour, raise up the stroller up and down the train. Some of the stations don't even have elevators.
Eventually, she was assigned a yellow school bus to bring her to school, but that didn't solve much.
There are many days that the school bus would not show up. They would not even let you know that they're not showing up.
Now she's in permanent housing and moved her child one more time to a school that's just 4 minutes away.
She loves it for the first time in forever. She says that she loves her friends. She loves the teachers. She's doing well.
She says her religious faith is what got her through her time in shelter. And now she wants to advocate for other women in her position. She also wants the candidates running for mayor to understand what it's like for families like hers and to be accountable when the city's systems fail.
Most people think that homeless people are bums, or they don't have an education, or they have nothing going for them. But that's not the case. Everybody hits a break in life, and that's what happened. That's my story, because I'm coming from a background of degrees and running a business and experiencing this humbling moment and having to go through that. It taught me a lot, and it just empowered me even more to, educate my daughter.
In the Bronx, Jillian Jorgensen, New York One.
It is time for a break. Coming up, City Council candidates Kayla Santosuosso and George Sarantopoulos go head-to-head in a debate right here on New York One. Hear what they have to say about affordable housing, public safety, and much more. Stay with us. We are back in a minute.
This election year is all about New York City. There are 51 council seats up for grabs, races for our next city comptroller and the next public advocate.
Plus, an unprecedented race for mayor. That puts the power in your hands to decide who will run our city.
Our team of political experts will be covering every angle of this election to keep you informed on how it could affect you, so you can feel confident with your decision at the polls.
Stay with Spectrum News New York One for Decision 2025, exclusively on Spectrum.
It's only a game. It's only a little rivalry. It's only a ritual. When I come home late, and a few generations. You're always there. And only Spectrum TV includes all your favorite streaming apps with live TV at no extra cost. It's only a game. It's only everything.
Mom was always organized, but she started forgetting to pay her bills on time.
And she'd buy the same gifts over and over.
Telling the girls about my Alzheimer's diagnosis was really hard.
At first we had our cries, but then we were like, okay, let's make a plan.
Early detection gave us time to adapt together.
It's so important for you to think about what you can do and making the most of what you have.
If you or your family are noticing changes, it could be Alzheimer's. Talk about seeing a doctor together.
From my time growing up in Queens watching New York One to my time reporting here, I've seen how quickly a story can change. At News All Day, we bring you the news as it's happening, from around the boroughs to local government to your neighborhood. Because our city never stops moving.
3, 2, 1.
Hi, I'm
Shannon Ferry with the day's developing stories. But first,
stay up to date and informed with News All Day, weekdays from noon to 4.
At Spectrum News, we're committed to strengthening the fabric of local communities through our reporting, with stories that inspire and news that matters on your smart TV and connected devices, streaming live 24/7, plus on-demand weather forecasts to help you stay prepared. It's all there as you step outside with the Spectrum News mobile app, keeping you informed and in the know throughout your day. Spectrum News, free with your Spectrum subscription, exclusively for Spectrum customers, now available on your favorite devices.
Welcome back to Inside City Hall. Early voting begins this Saturday with Election Day itself, exactly 2 weeks from tomorrow. In addition to the race for mayor, all 51 city council seats are up for grabs, and tonight we are holding a debate in one of the most closely watched council races, the contest for District 47 in South Brooklyn. The district includes the neighborhoods of Bay Ridge and Coney Island, and in between, portions of Dyker Heights, Bath Beach, and Gravesend. Current council member Justin Brannan is term limited at the end of the year, leaving the seat open. And tonight I'm joined by the two candidates seeking to replace him. Democrat Kayla Santosuosso is a former small business owner who currently serves as chief counsel to Councilman Brannan. And Republican George Sarantopoulos is founder of an ATM and credit card processing company. Thank you both for joining us. So the rules you see on your screen now have been agreed to by the candidates. They will each have 60 seconds for an opening statement. Answers to my questions will generally be limited to 60 seconds, and there will be both a cross-examination round and a lightning round. You can also see this full debate on ny1.com or on the Spectrum News app at any time, and you can join the conversation using the hashtag NY1Debate. Now for opening statements. The order for tonight's opening statements was determined by a random drawing. George Sarantopoulos will go first. You've got 60 seconds.
Thank you. Hi, my name is George Sarantopoulos. I am the Republican candidate running here for District 47. I am a father, husband, business owner, cancer survivor. That recently happened where I found out around this time last year that I had beaten cancer. Now, when you beat cancer, it makes you want to do better for your community, and I wanted to give back to my community. I decided to run because I felt that I've been hearing too much from our neighbors too long, that they can't afford to live here anymore, the quality of life has gone down, and most especially, they don't feel safe anymore in our city. And the political class, the Democratic Party, who's held on to this city for a long time, says, trust us, keep voting for us. Well, it's time for a change. Please consider voting for me.
All right, Kayla Santosuosso.
Thank you for having me. My name is Kayla Santosuosso, and I have been serving people my entire life. I grew up in restaurants, and my husband and I owned a bar and restaurant in Bay Ridge, too. I have worked in nonprofits where I've fought poverty. I've been a city attorney protecting taxpayer dollars from fraud and abuse. And for a number of years now, I've worked for Councilmember Justin Brannan, improving our neighborhoods and solving problems day in and day out. And now I'm running for city council because I want to make sure generations of families can afford to stay and want to stay in Southern Brooklyn. That means that we can afford things like rent and childcare, but it also means that our neighborhoods stay safe, enjoyable, and clean for all. I believe it's important to know how to do this job on day one. I already know who to call when your kid's bus route is too long or a tree is down. I have the know-how and the experience to get the job done on day one, and I won't waste any time delivering for the neighborhoods I love in Southern Brooklyn.
All right, our first topic is going to concern affordability with a particular focus on housing. So I think everyone agrees we have a housing crisis in this city. And to start, I want to ask you guys about the 3 housing-related ballot questions that voters will be voting on in November. They are intended to make it faster and easier to build new housing in the city, in particular affordable housing. But the city council is very much opposed to this because council members will lose some of the power they have over land use issues as a result. So, Ms. Santosuosso, let's start with you. How do you plan to vote on questions 2, 3, and 4 on the ballot, and why?
Yeah, well, we're in a time where there's a historically low vacancy rate, and so there is a housing and affordability crisis, and we need to do what we can. Building new housing is not the silver bullet, but it's definitely part of the solution. And this is the most pro-housing city council that we've had in a long time. But I see these proposals as an opportunity for more power to be consolidated within a mayor who may or may not be pro-housing. And the problem is it takes away the ability for council members to be able to fight for things like housing that's more affordable or housing that's built by people with a living wage. And so I think that the districts wouldn't want more of that consolidation into a mayor. They should have city council members who can represent the specific districts and the needs of those districts. We should be building everywhere where it makes sense, you know, where it fits the quality of the neighborhood and where it's already high density. But city council members need to have a say in what works best for their district.
All right, Mr. Sarantopoulos.
Well, I would have to agree with Kayla on that. Nobody wants to live in a bedroom community like ours and find out that there's a greedy developer who built a 10, 20, 30-story building. We want input not only from the councilman or councilwoman who's elected, but we want input from the community board. We don't want that to be pushed off into a mayor's office that really doesn't know what type of housing or what type of housing is actually needed in a community. I would like to see more varied housing. I'd like to see a more robust Mitchell-Lama 2.0. I'd like to see more smaller housing for people just starting out, for working families just starting out, like micro apartments. I think we need to expand the range of housing.
And let me ask you this, the City of Yes initiative was passed last year by the City Council. This was something that was pushed by Mayor Adams and made a number of zoning changes around the city in order to boost the housing supply. It was very controversial. Did you or do you support the City of Yes initiative?
I do not support the City of Yes. Like I said, you want input by your local community board and your local council person. It should not be passed off to the City Hall, like I said, who doesn't really know what the community really needs and what type of housing needs the community has.
And did you support City of Yes?
So City of Yes was an effort to build more housing across the city and to recognize that in order to combat this historically low vacancy rate, we all need to really do our part. I was grateful that Councilmember Brannan was able to make that work, the City of Yes for Housing Opportunity, for our district, meaning that not large swaths of our district were subject to massive increases that would have fundamentally changed the character of our neighborhood. But I think as a city, finding these high-density places where it makes sense to build is important. In our district, for instance, we have a large aging population, a senior population, that's getting priced out of rentals and is getting priced out of some of home ownership, and we really need more senior housing. And so any opportunity that allows for that kind of thing in a way that doesn't fundamentally change the character of the neighborhood, I think we need to welcome.
And let me just ask you both as a general proposition in terms of affordability, generally speaking, not just limited to housing, is there anything that can really be done on the city level to bring down costs for New Yorkers and particularly for residents in your district?
Yeah, I mean, what we're hearing a lot of is talk about a rent freeze. We're hearing that largely from a mayoral campaign. That's not necessarily within the purview of the city council, but the Rent Guidelines Board is the body, you know, that does sort of weigh in on whether rent-stabilized units, the rent in rent-stabilized units can be raised or not. We have a lot of rent-stabilized units in our district, particularly in Bay Ridge. If the mayor were to appoint Rent Guidelines Board members who agreed that the emergency thing that we needed to do right now was to freeze the rent, that would be, you know, something that would make an immediate difference in people's pockets for rent-stabilized units. That's an example of one immediate thing we could do. My predecessor, or the current city council member, Justin Brannan, has pushed through legislation in the city council bipartisan to reform our property tax system so that Bay Ridge stops paying disproportionately more than Park Slope and Park Ave, but really that requires work from Albany.
And Mr. Sarantopoulos, same question to you, but also, do you support the idea of a rent freeze on rent?
I don't support the idea of a rent freeze because we are eroding people's property rights. This is not just hurting people that own 200, 300 apartments and the big corporations. This is hurting people that own 2, 3, 4 family homes, owner occupied, and they are not being able, they are losing their rights every day when they cannot evict somebody who hasn't paid the rent in a year or 2 or 3. So I believe that we need to do more to protect those homeowners. We have about 6,000 or 5,000 units that are being warehoused by NYCHA. We need to bring those housing units back online. And we have about 50 to 60,000 units that are being warehoused by private landlords. Mayor Adams had a program, it was about 10 million, and only rehabilitated 400 apartments. These landlords, if a rent freeze happens, they're not going to bring them back to market. They're just not, because the incentive, the financial incentive, won't be strong enough. So we're just going to see more units being warehoused, and the affordability crisis even get worse.
All right, let's move on to the topic of public safety, which is always top of mind for voters. Currently, under Mayor Adams, depending on how you look at the statistics, it seems as though, I mean, it certainly seems as though homicides and shootings are down, at least if you're looking at the trend lines over the past few years. The trend has been different for certain other crime categories, and there seems to be a perception out there that crime is still at unacceptable levels here in the city. So I guess I would just ask you, and we'll start with you, Mr. Sarantopoulos, is the city safe right now?
I don't think people feel safe. They just don't. And it's death by 1,000 cuts, right? It's the little crimes. It's package theft, catalytic converters, muggings. People just don't feel safe on the subway. We have no control over our subway system. It's being overrun by emotionally disturbed people who are not only mentally ill, but they have addiction issues, and they are overtaking our subway. So I don't think people feel safe going to school, going to work. We're in a crisis mode, and we are losing police officers. I want to remind the audience, I'm the only candidate endorsed by the PBA, the LBA, and the DEA that is endorsed by the police unions that can bring safety. The Democratic Party is no longer trusted on this issue anymore.
And Ms. Santosuosso, is the city safe?
So I think what I hear, whether I'm in Bay Ridge or Coney Island, from voters is that they do want to see more patrols in their community and, more cops on the beat, more cop cars regularly driving around the district. Out of the two of us in this race, I'm the only one who has to regularly work with our local precincts to work on issues of crime. And we have a very great relationship, and I'm glad that I get to do that. And when I speak with these officers, many of whom I think are upset that I ever got their cell phone numbers because I rely on them too much to do my job. But, they say that they want to be doing more, but that they need more resources, and that really they're tasked with too much, that the NYPD gets tasked with solving so many problems that they really don't have the ability to solve. So I want to work collaboratively with our local precincts to figure out exactly what it is. What are the resources that are needed? What initiatives are there? I mean, I think the new quality of life teams are showing really great early results, so I'm feeling pretty optimistic about those.
And in terms of quality of life, or just public safety issues in general, what is happening in your district? Are there public safety issues specific to the 47th Council District, and how would you address that?
Yeah, one issue that I hear on almost every door is the issue of street safety. And that's a pretty broad category, which includes drag racing and speeding. It also includes the loud, illegally modified muffler noise that seems to plague our neighborhoods, as well as mopeds that are on the sidewalk and, just racing through the streets. It's clear that parents are nervous when their kids are crossing the street. Seniors are nervous to cross the street. I had a friend who was killed in 2020 by a driver, and just last week we had 2 Xaverian High School kids who were walking home from school and were hit by a driver who went up onto the sidewalk and hit them, and one of them is unfortunately in the hospital right now. So it is a major issue. I hear it all the time across the board, and as someone who drives and rides a bike and walks around, I feel that pressure too. It's something I really want to solve.
And Mr. Sarantopoulos, same question. What are some of the public safety issues in the district, and how would you address
I just want to remind, even though Councilman Justin Brennan forgot her name, there was a woman who was burned in our district, burned to death on the subway, Debrina Kawan. And nothing has been done about it. And, to say that you're working with the precincts is laughable, because the current councilman, every precinct in our district is understaffed. We are bringing police officers from Staten Island who don't really have the knowledge of our district, and we are bringing them into our district because every precinct in our community is understaffed. So to say that you understand what's going on is laughable. I'm sorry. This poor woman got burned on the subway. and you guys seem to have forgotten her name. What are we doing to take back our subways?
Can I respond to
Yes.
that, please? I mean, I do work with our police officers every day, and they do a tremendous job of what they do. They are tasked with an incredible amount of work, and there are only so many people, and they only have so much of an ability to solve the problems that are in front of them, but I'm so proud of the work that they do, and I want to work collaboratively with them. And as far as Debrina Cuomo and the tragic incident that happened with her, I agree. I mean, I do think we need more of a police presence, particularly in our subway stations. That happened in a subway station. There's no indication that she was from Coney Island or had gotten on the train there.
So she didn't deserve safety?
Of course she deserves safety, and I'm calling for more safety. But the idea that she was forgotten or hasn't been regarded by our police officers is frankly just, I think that's unfortunate
I never
to say.
said she was forgotten by police officers. I said she was forgotten by your office, to be clear.
All right, guys, we are going to take a short break. We'll have a lot more from these candidates for City Council District 47 when we come back. Stay with us.
My time at New York One has shown me that in the city that never sleeps, the news never stops. So as the day winds down, turn to the rush hour.
Good afternoon, I'm Monica Perkman.
To catch up on the stories that matter across the 5 boroughs, with in-depth interviews from the city's newsmakers, plus the latest forecast. Catching you up with today, preparing you for tomorrow. Right here on the Rush Hour. Weekdays from 4 to 7 p.m.
There's an international travel plan with Spectrum that was an additional $10 a month, as opposed to paying a ridiculous amount per day for roaming fees. This literally felt like my old phone carrier was reaching their hand into my wallet and just helping themselves to some of my cash. I like having no surprises when it comes to my cell phone bill. And with Spectrum, that's been the case. So it saved me a ton of money.
Real customers, real savings. To see how much you can save, visit spectrum.com/save.
I'm Chris Jakimick. I served in the United States Air Force, and I deployed 3 times. So in 2017, I was serving as an Air Force First Sergeant. Our motto in that role is, my job is people, everyone is my business. But unfortunately in that year, I would lose my own brother, Lance Corporal Adam Jakimick, to suicide. The majority of veteran suicides are from guns. I store my weapons securely, not only for myself, but for my family. My service never stops.
At Spectrum Noticias, we recognize that our New York City community is vibrant and diverse.
Spectrum Noticias delivers balanced coverage of the stories that matter in our communities and across the country.
Our journalists are based in the neighborhoods we cover, ensuring you get in-depth reporting on what's happening in the places we call home.
So join us at Spectrum Noticias. We're always on, always there for you.
Now available on your TV. Check your local listings. Also available on the Spectrum News app.
Welcome back to Inside City Hall, where we are bringing you a debate in the race for the 47th City Council District in South Brooklyn. It is time now for the cross-examination. That's when each candidate gets to ask a question of their opponent. And we will start with you, George Sarantopoulos.
Yeah, I mean, it's the issue of public safety. Your boss has said that he wanted to defund the police. Your mayoral candidate says he wants to defund the police at certain times. You've said in the I've talked about the precincts being understaffed. You've said in questionnaires that you would not take support from the police unions or police officers. You've said in questionnaires, the Lambda Democrats Club and the Jim Al's clubs, to be exact, you said that you were against the gang database. Again, you know, you're supporting a candidate, your club, the Bay Ridge Democrats, are supporting a mayoral candidate who wants to defund the police, who believes that violence is an abstract concept. You want to close up Rikers. How can we trust you on law and order? How can we trust you on public safety? How are you going to make people in Coney Island feel safe?
Yeah, I mean, voters can trust me because I do this work day in and day out, and I'm the only person in this race who has the experience day in and day out, working with precincts, getting calls from constituents who complain about a handful of issues, a wide range of safety issues, whether it's in Bay Ridge or whether it's in Coney Island, and working collaboratively with the precinct. I'm very lucky that I have a great relationship with them. Look, as a city council member, I won't be able to enforce the laws. I'll only be able to write them. And so I am very lucky that I already know how to have those relationships. And honestly, on day one, I'm very excited to sit down with our local precincts and say, what is it that you actually want? Because, you know, there's all this talk about hiring 5,000 more police officers or 7,000 more police officers. But what does that matter if at the end of the day, our districts don't get any of those police officers?
So you're for defunding the police?
Absolutely not. I rely upon the police to do the job.
So you are for more NYPD police officers on the street right now?
If our precincts asked for more officers, I would certainly.
But they are asking for it.
All right. Let's switch and go back the other way. Ms. Santosuosso, your turn to ask a question.
George, in a lot of ways, you have made your money on nickel and diming people for basic services. You own ATMs and you charge people high fees in order to take out their cash. You're a landlord who appeared in front of the Rent Guidelines Board in the height of COVID 2021 and begged for a citywide rent increase, despite lots of complaints about not providing heat and hot water to your tenants. And then when you didn't get what you want, you evicted a lot of tenants. I think it was about 7. So we're in the middle of an affordability crisis. Why should people trust that you're the person to address the cost of living?
Well, first of all, I don't nickel and dime customers in my ATM business. I'm actually lower than the banks. Banks are typically now at $3.50 to $4. My typical ATM's at $2 in most bodegas across the city. So let me answer that part of the question. Second part is nobody got evicted during the pandemic. You couldn't evict anyone. So that's a lie right there.
No, since. You've evicted them since you didn't get your rent increase in 2021.
If they don't pay rent, yes, I have to. I own an SRO. That SRO has not gotten an increase in about 12 to 14 years, approximately. I am a property owner. I have expenses. My real estate tax went up. When you guys were saying we're all in it together, real estate taxes kept going up. So you guys didn't give us a break.
That was a bipartisan bill, by the way, that got passed.
I'm talking about the city council. I'm talking about the city council.
Yeah, correct. A bipartisan bill that was passed by Joe Borelli.
And Justin Brennan promised us tax reform in the beginning of this year. And Joe Borelli's not there, and Justin Brennan was too busy running for controller.
And if he knew anything about the position he was running for, he would know that that requires Albany.
All right, guys, we're going to move on to a few more topics. Let me ask you guys about seniors. Seniors make up, I believe, about 20% of the district. What are some of the issues facing older residents in your district, and what can the city do to address them? Back to you, Ms. Santosuosso.
Yeah, I mean, what I hear from seniors is that they are terrified about their benefits being cut by the federal government, and basically saying that the city is going to need to make up some of that difference, which I agree with. It is not conscionable that we would leave our seniors, who in a lot of ways have built this city, without the benefits that they need to survive. My opponent, who brings Trump cutouts, cardboard cutouts to his events, presumably endorses the fact that we have cut all of these essential benefits for seniors. And I truly don't know how they're going to make ends meet. The other thing that I hear is about retiree health care, which for city workers who have retired and they wanted to keep their Medicare and their health benefits as it was promised to them. And you know, the current mayor tried to do a switcheroo on them and dilute those health benefits. I'm proud to say that I support 1096, which is the legislation that would require that these retirees get the health benefits that they were promised, which as a city worker is really important to me.
All right, Mr. Sarantopoulos, same question.
I want a little latitude here, if that's okay. The Trump cutout, somebody brought that, so let's be clear on that.
You took photos of that cutout at one of your events.
Yes, absolutely. Listen, I'm a Republican. I'm not ashamed of my candidate. The notion that we should have a professional political class, and you keep attacking my record that I don't know you're going to work on day one, is ridiculous. We should have a wide diversity of life experience in the city council. We shouldn't have a professional class of elected people that go from college, go to nonprofits, work a small government job, and then go right into the city council.
I also owned a business, and
your husband owned the business, first of all.
Excuse me, sir. We both owned the business, unless you think a woman's ownership doesn't matter.
No, I do not. My wife is a partner in my business.
So was I.
But the notion that you are always leading by saying, hey, I'm an attorney, I have the experience. I have the experience too. I've consulted with candidates as well as elected officials for over a decade. So please, I've also was a comms director for an assemblyman. I've made payroll for 3 decades straight. I've dealt with all kinds of people in the city. So to say that your experience is better than mine is ridiculous.
All right, guys, I'm going to move on to a question that's a little bit more political in nature, but it's about the makeup of your district. It is one of the few truly purple districts in the city. Voters in your district are mostly registered Democrats, and I believe Kamala Harris won the district by a little bit more than 3 points, but there was a significant shift towards Donald Trump in your district as compared to the 2020 election. So let me ask you sort of a two-pronged question. One, why do you think voters shifted towards Trump in the presidential election last year? And then secondly, given the fact that you will have constituents, if you're elected, who are on the other side of the political spectrum, what do you do to appeal to them? Is there an example of maybe a position where you moderate, maybe you're more moderate than others in your party in order to better represent those people in your district?
Well, that's a two-part of the question. I would say the number one reason why I believe New Yorkers went a little more right and voted for Donald Trump is because we had no control of the border. I mean, this was costing us billions of dollars. I hear it from immigrants who have been here 15, 20 years, who worked their butt off, saved every dollar they can to buy a home, to go to college or send their kids to college. But meanwhile, we have migrants that are coming here to New York City that are staying in luxury hotels. They are the maddest. And the voters, I think, in the last election, got fed up with the border not being controlled and that it's costing the city billions of dollars. And we're having to make choices of schools not getting enough money, libraries closing on Sunday, which just recently opened, and the cuts in city services for people that just got here. We need to take care of lifelong New Yorkers or people that have been here for a while, not importing poverty.
And a little extra time since I asked you the two-part question. Yeah, is there any position that maybe you're more moderate than other Republicans because you have such a diverse district?
I think that there's parts of Coney Island that are underserved by food deserts, as Michelle Obama said. I think a food co-op modeled on the Park Slope food co-op would be very beneficial to Coney Island.
All right, Ms. Santosuosso, two-pronged question.
Yeah. So I think that the shift to Donald Trump was that really he was in the presidential race highlighting the cost of living as the major concern. And, you know, a critique that I had of my own party during that process was that we weren't talking about it enough. And so I understand voters' frustration, you know, when they were feeling that in their pockets and nobody was speaking to it. However, since then, I think people have realized that that wasn't actually his agenda at all. Things aren't getting cheaper, things aren't getting more affordable. And now we have military and ICE and masked police going into cities like Chicago and Portland who are essentially unaccountable, not following due process, arresting U.S. citizens, and this is really terrifying people across the political spectrum. So I think we are seeing that shift, that people are understanding that they were given a bait and switch. As far as my appeal, I think being a small business owner, and specifically, you know, running a bar and restaurant, we actually bought our business a year to the day before COVID shut us down. So we had one good year, and then we were playing catch up for many years. I think I've seen the side of things where too much regulation on a small business can really kill it. For example, there are permits that we're required to have for hood cleaning that only the FDNY can do that costs us $500 every quarter or something like that. And there are things that we can do to reduce fines and fees, reduce some of the unnecessary regulation. We can't strangle these businesses and then wonder why they close. And so, you know, that's really a position I take.
Let me ask you just really briefly, as a matter of political orientation, how closely do you see yourself to Zoran Mamdani, the Democratic nominee, who is, of course, a Democratic socialist, and a lot of critics say is sort of out of step with New Yorkers' opinions?
Yeah, so I consider myself a Democrat. I get labeled a lot of things by George, and I believe that as a person who stands for strong schools, parks and playgrounds, clean and safe streets and sidewalks, and good, strong libraries, and putting working people first. You can call me whatever you want to call me, but I consider that to be a Democrat.
The notion, okay, I got to jump in here. The notion that, I mean, we keep going back to the same thing, that Republicans want to kill grandma. I mean, that's ridiculous. And two, you are a Democratic socialist. Your club, the Bay Ridge Democrats, supported Zohran Mamdani. Zohran Mamdani has said, I'm a Democratic socialist. You congratulated Linda Sansour when she became a DSA member. You are a DSAer. Why not just admit it? Be proud.
Well, speaking of labels...
Sorry, can I respond to that?
And Republicans want all those things too. They want clean parks, good schools. We just agree. We actually have real solutions, not slogans.
Sorry, just because I was invoked. I am not a member of the DSA. I didn't seek the DSA's endorsement. They have not endorsed me at all. And so you can keep throwing these labels on, but I am the president of the Bay Ridge Democrats, which collectively voted after the primary to endorse the Democratic nominee. You can keep throwing these labels and keep throwing these lies at me. I am a Democrat.
Well, speaking of labels, just very briefly, by the way, do you consider yourself a MAGA Republican?
I consider myself a New York Republican, okay? I'm not an Arkansas Republican or a Mississippi Republican. I'm a New York Republican.
He paid $3,000 to be on a podcast led by a MAGA hat-wearing podcast host. So I'm kind of surprised.
He's a Russian podcaster. He just happens to be MAGA. And listen, he talks to the Russian audience.
But you paid $3,000 to be on his MAGA podcast.
While he also is consulting my campaign on how to reach the Russian voter.
All right, guys, we're going to talk about budgeting. Two of the biggest powers that the city council has are land use and negotiating the city budget. Let me ask you, Mr. Sarantopoulos, I'll start with you. What is an area of the city budget that you think needs to be reduced? And what's an area of the city budget that you think, where you think maybe funding could be added?
Well, I believe that the problem is, and it's not really part of the city budget, but it's the MTA. I believe that is the black hole of money. We just passed the congestion pricing, and within a year, congestion pricing started, we had a fare increase. And I would say for working families, that's affecting, more people are paying the fare than paying taxes, city taxes. So that is adversely affecting people in the city. We just had an increase from $2.90 to $3. And we have massive fare evasion. We have no control of the finances at the MTA. We need to look at the books there, and that would probably affect New Yorkers' lives more than anything.
And any place where you think the budget should be added?
I think our parks. Honestly, I think our parks are dirty. I just don't think we're doing enough. I don't think we're keeping our commitment. I believe it's supposed to be 1% of the city budget, and that's just not happening.
All right, Ms. Santosuosso.
Yeah, I was a law department attorney, so I got a front row seat to all of the lawsuits that are filed against the city, and a lot of them that are frivolous, and that we could save a lot of money on if we actually gave the law department the resources that it needs to effectively combat all of these frivolous lawsuits that are filed against the city. I have ideas about ways that we can fix that, so that's an area. But an area where I would add, I'd have to agree with George on this one. I do think that parks should be 1% of the city budget, so it's something that I would support. In particular, we have to look at forestry. It's one of the most frustrating jobs as a staffer of a city council member that I have to tell homeowners that the tree adjacent to their property won't get pruned for 10 years and there's almost nothing they can do about it. Meanwhile, branches can be falling on people's heads and, you know, sidewalks can be uplifted, and it's a real safety issue. So that's the opportunity I see now.
Republicans want clean parks too.
Well, you do. That's great.
Okay.
All right, point of agreement. We're going to move on to our lightning round, where each candidate will answer my questions with a brief response, yes or no, or very, very brief explanation. Let's start with an easy one.
Okay.
Let me ask you your favorite restaurant in District 47.
Chadwick's.
Tannerine. Palestinian cuisine, best of the best.
City Bike just recently began rolling out docking stations in Bay Ridge. Do you support the rollout of City Bike?
I support a limited roll. I mean, I think 49 in our community is way too much.
Okay.
I think it was actually 48, and I think it's a good rollout. I actually personally saved around 100 parking spots by tweaking that map, so I'm very proud of that.
Do you think that horse carriage rides should be banned in the city?
I'm coming around to it, so yes.
I would support a ban, but if nothing else, they should be banned from city streets and allowed in Central Park.
Rikers Island, under the current law, is due to be closed by 2027, which is logistically impossible, so the next city council is going to have to negotiate a new law. Do you support closing Rikers in support of these 4 borough-based jails?
No.
Yes.
Congestion pricing, has it been a good thing for the city on balance?
No.
Too early to tell. We have to see if the funds actually flow to our last stop communities.
The Coney Island Casino project, known as the Coney, is now dead. Is that a good thing?
I believe that's what the community wanted, so I'm okay with that.
His wife was a paid lobbyist for the casino.
She's not a paid lobbyist. She did a Chinese New Year event.
Yes or no? Good thing
It's an excellent thing. I'm proud to have been part of the no vote that Councilmember.
Okay. Well, what was your plan B for the community?
All right, guys, we've got to wrap it up. That is going to do it for this debate and for tonight's show. You can catch the exclusive web portion of this debate on ny1.com, where we get into Mayor Adams' legacy, another lightning round, and more. And as a reminder, on Wednesday, New York One will host the second and final debate in the race for mayor. At 6:30 p.m., I'll be joined by some of our New York One reporters and analysts for special coverage before the debate. Then at 7 o'clock, we'll be live from LaGuardia Community College. And on Friday, we will have the general election debate in the race for Manhattan District Attorney. That'll begin at about 7:25 right here on City Hall. And we also have a voter guide for you. You can use the QR code right there on your screen to take you there. That's where you can find all of our other debates, your ballot, and more. And early voting begins this Saturday with polls opening at 9 a.m. Thanks for watching, everybody, and have a great evening. We will see you the next time on Inside City Hall.
That's a look at some of what's in the papers this morning. You're done with the sports section.
Today's story is about the latest chapter for a beloved local business.
It's a beautiful day with temperatures in the 60s, but showers are expected in the next hour.
In a city that's always on the go, it's important to stop to hear the stories that connect us.
The news that matters to New Yorkers. That's what brings us together. That's Mornings on One.
Weekdays starting at 6.
Exclusively on Spectrum.
My name is Gail, and we are in my showroom for Florist Fire Design House. We are a full production wedding and event company that focuses on florals. Getting Spectrum set up for my business was extremely smooth. They were here the same day, had it set up within an hour, and I was online and ready to go and run my business. You know, I have to be able to be online at 5 a.m. when the market's open. And if I'm contacting a merchant via email or placing an order online, without Spectrum, it wouldn't be possible.
One more row.
Spectrum is reliable, they're committed, they're fast, and they really take care of me as a business owner. Last year, when the really bad hurricane came through, our internet stayed the entire time. One of the businesses down the street, she was like, wait a minute, how are you still online? And I was like, Spectrum, baby. You gotta get Spectrum.
Get award-winning internet for your business. Up to 4 months free when bundled. Visit spectrum.com/business to learn more.
This election year is all about New York City. There are 51 council seats up for grabs, races for our next city comptroller and the next public advocate.
Plus, an unprecedented race for mayor. That puts the power in your hands to decide who will run our city.
Our team of political experts will be covering every angle of this election to keep you informed on how it could affect you, so you can feel confident with your decision at the polls.
Stay with Spectrum News New York One for Decision 2025, exclusively on Spectrum.